Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the CLV Revolution. My guest today has been trekking into the Himalayas, into the Andes, and into the Carpathian Mountains. He's also a former academic and professor at Penn State University, and he's also the founder at the CX University. Also an entrepreneur, we talked about a lot of things like Johnny the Beggar, Ritz-Carlton, how leaders will develop their companies thanks to customer experience, and a lot of other juicy stuff that you don't want to miss if you want to grow your retail company. So, Mohamed, thanks a lot for joining me. Tell us how you've got first into the customer experience arena and why do you like it? Because I presume you like it if you're still here after so many years, right?
That is right, Valentin. But first, thank you for inviting me to be part of your podcast. So, how did I get into it? And this is not strange, but I've been practicing the principles of customer experience as a human being.
Yeah.
I just didn't know I was applying all of the principles that I'm aware of today. I was exceptional at building relationships. And the experience I had building relationships, and I developed a vast global network of relationships. And in my job, when I started as a university professor, I grew into becoming an administrator, and I began by becoming a director of an MBA program. And I was competing with well-known brands in the higher education industry. I joined a small Catholic institution with no brand equity whatsoever, and I was competing against well-known brands in the MBA space. And I brought my staff together. And I said to my staff, without knowing I'm practicing customer experience principles as you and I know it today, I brought my team together and I said, look, there are some fundamental conditions that are non-exception. They must be adhered to. First and foremost, any student inquiry that comes into the office, we must respond to that student inquiry within 1 hour, period. We must also follow up after the call and response to the inquiry. We must follow up with a package within 24 hours, a package of information. And we must get to know every inquiring student by name. What do you think happened? This mom-pop brand that I was managing and then competing with well-established institutions with exceptional reputation, what happened? These students started coming in our direction because we were holding their hands. We were treating them like human beings. They were not numbers. And we had advisors assigned to every person that entered this journey with us. And before long, I used to get calls from branded institutions saying, Mohamed, why are we losing students to you? In fact, the dean of a business school in a well-established institution in our neighborhood has a global reputation. The dean of their business school and graduate studies called me and said, I want to have lunch with you. And we sit down and we spoke over lunch. And he said, why are you getting students that we've admitted coming to you? I said, because we treat them well. Now consider the gratification I was experiencing by being able to compete with well-known brands and positioning ourselves really in retrospect as an entity that applied all of the principles, models, and practices of customer experience as we know it today. And I grew it into the fourth largest program in Pennsylvania.
What was that year? So when that happened?
It started in 1997,
Mm-hmm.
which is when I assumed leadership of the MBA program. And I subsequently became a vice president of the university, and my portfolio increased beyond the MBA. I started managing an undergraduate evening division program. I gave birth to an
Yeah.
instructional technology department. I went online. I eventually managed all graduate programs that reported to me. And we started applying these principles, and it became more and more exciting. In fact, I will tell you, Valentine, I actually invited all of the staff on campus, the custodians, the guard, the folks that are managing traffic flow on the campus. I brought them all together. And here's what I said. I'm going to give you one example.
Yeah.
I said to the staff in a meeting, I said, if a parent comes on campus, it's new, right, to them. It's a new environment for them. And they're looking for a specific destination on campus. Typically, what happens? Typically, this is what happens. Oh, go in that direction, make a right, make a left, and you'll see the building. I said, that's not acceptable. If someone asks you for help, don't say go in this direction, you take them there. Imagine how parents feel after they come to a campus to visit where, and remember, they're anxious because they're letting their child out of the home
Yeah.
to live on a university campus, right?
Yeah.
They're anxious. Imagine how good parents felt when they saw that they were held by their hands and led to the destination. So all clutter was taken care of.
Excellent. So tell us what kept you in this customer experience arena and what have you done after that. So if we take the time machine to nowadays, what led you at this very moment?
Well, that particular early experience, as I said a moment ago, was very gratifying to me.
Hmm.
And I was not only an academic, I was also a consultant and an entrepreneur. So I straddled both the academic world and the corporate world. And it didn't take long before I was having a conversation with a very good friend of mine. And we started talking, and this friend of mine was an engineer. So he had a lot of software development background. And we started discussing the idea of, trying to translate everything I was doing into a platform, a software platform.
Yeah.
And so eventually in 1999, Valentine, I co-founded a technology company with this friend of mine, and we built proprietary software platforms to go out and conduct online surveys.
Yeah.
And we started getting clients, we started collecting data, and it began to make more and more sense to me that we are actually able to make a significant impact. And the impact came not just by collecting data, the impact came by exploring what the data was telling us.
Yeah.
So it gave us insights, it gave us intelligence, and we made the data meaningful to our clients. And thereafter, we started selling to many global brands. And our biggest win in terms of customer experience was to have won a contract with one of the largest retail chains in the United States called Kohl's Department Stores.
Yeah. Yeah.
Still in existence, still thriving. And we partnered with them to provide the service I just mentioned, online surveys, getting the data. And we did quarterly strategic reviews with senior executives at corporate headquarters of Kohl's and gave them an appreciation of how powerful it was to adopt the principles of customer experience for easier acquisition of customers, for increasing the level of satisfaction for customers, and generally building loyalty.
Yeah.
When you see those kinds of outcomes, it's even more gratifying, reinforcing the belief I had. And by the way, the belief was common sense. I mean, does it take more than common sense to be able to treat people well? It doesn't take
Yeah.
more than common sense. So if you have that facility, you're already on the path to the customer experience world.
Yeah. Mohammed, uh, customer experience as a discipline is not that old, even though it is old since the trade itself, right? If you don't treat your customers well, why should they come back? Uh, Tell us, how do you see it right now? So after all these years, when you've started to play in this arena, How do you see it right now, and where do you think we will go?
Well, you're right. It's a young discipline, oftentimes identified as a stepchild of marketing, the marketing function in business, or as a stepchild of the operational function of the business. So it was a stepchild. It didn't know where to reside.
Yeah,
And I couldn't help but hear people tell me, oh, my new job is manager of customer experience. What is that? So you can imagine how young the discipline was at the time. And it's still, by the way, a very young discipline. And it got formalized, at least from my perspective, in 2011, when the first globally recognized professional association was formed called the Customer Experience Professional Association. And I joined it and I participated in the very first conference in 2011, where I learned a lot more about what was happening. And the two co founders of the Customer Experience Professionals Association became good friends of mine. One came out of Forrester. If you know Forrester, it's a well known
yeah,
analyst company. And Bruce Temkin was the guy that basically did the customer experience piece of work at Forrester. And a good friend and colleague of his, who is a very well-known customer experience professional, Gene Bliss, who's written quite a bit and is quite well known. These were the co-founders of the association. And so in some sense, together with people like me and many other colleagues that arrived at the first conference, really together gave energy to this movement to formalize the discipline. And it was, I think, in 2014, if I remember correctly, that CXPA came up with a rubric that said, this is the boundary, this is the domain of the customer experience discipline. And that's remained the case still today. So that's the association piece that sort of legitimized the practice of this discipline. What has become so obvious today, and we harken back to the basic concept of business. If you have customers, you have a business. If you don't have customers, you have no business, right? It's that
yeah,
basic. Oh, I think the future is enormously bright for the discipline because it's beginning to get recognition across the entire globe. I think the corporate world is recognizing the incredible power of experience. We have, of course, moved into the experience economy. We understand that experience is important to such an extent that now businesses recognize that what used to be a competitive advantage was product and price. Today, price and product still are important, but experience has surpassed price and product in terms of how the customer is going to perceive the brand.
yeah,
And my view is that if a customer interacting with a brand walks away being touched emotionally and cognitively, they will behave in a manner consistent with supporting increased market share, increased revenues, increased profitability, easier acquisition and retention, etc. Now, when executives recognize that all of this has an impact on the performance of the business, they give it more attention. And in my view, it's here to stay. It's going to develop some more. It's not going away. In fact, I'm predicting that customer experience as a discipline will become a function, a formal function within a organizational structure.
yeah. I'm totally with you, and I love the what you've said about the differentiation, and I also see that this fierce competition in the market is forcing companies to differentiate on the experience rather than on destroying their margins with the low price or on the product, because there's so much you can innovate, especially in some markets. Like if we talk about highly innovative markets, that's a different story. What I want to ask you, Mohammed, and it's going to seem like a stupid question. What do you think a head of customer experience in a retailer should be doing? What's his role? What should be his purpose? Because and the background around this question is that I see customer experience managers handling digital experience and handling the customer support. I see customer experience managers handling, being there in the board of the organization, being like a strategic leader in the board of the organization and going head to head to the marketing, to the product fulfillment, and so on.
So first, let me back up a little bit and answer a piece of the question you asked earlier. Customers today will pay more for a product if the experience is robust.
Yeah.
So think about that. Customer experience is becoming a competitive differentiating property. You can even pay more.
Yeah.
People will pay more. Now, keep in mind, quality of the product must be there. That's a given, right? But people will pay more if they experience their journey interacting with the brand in positive ways. Let me shift to the retail sector for a moment, because I've done a lot of work, as I mentioned a moment ago, with one of the largest department store chains in the US called Kohl's Department Stores. Let's think about the retail environment. And you are familiar with customer journey mapping and customer end-to-end customer journey. And the retail environment is a perfect example to be able to illustrate how touch points can be influenced so that a customer walks out feeling wowed by the entire journey of shopping. In the retail industry, it's very important for retailers to understand the end-to-end journey and to identify every single touch point. So let's look at some of the obvious touch points in retail that, quite honestly, many retailers don't seem to recognize. Let's not even begin with what happened and why people actually came to a retail establishment. Let's arrive at a retail establishment. The parking lot is important. It's a touch point. Is there space to park? How far do you have to walk to enter the store? The entrance to a retail facility is important. Is it welcoming? Is it clean? And I will tell you, because customer experience began to be practiced in the retail world, a lot of the large retailers would actually have someone at the front of the store welcoming you with a human interaction. Now enter the store. Look at all the touch points when you enter a store. What are the touch points? Merchandise display, cleanliness of the store, access to bathrooms, space to shop, and a host of other variables come into play. But let's walk through the store. I pick up all my merchandise, and I'm now exiting. The exit point, where you're going to pay for your merchandise, itself is a very significant touch point. I picture standing in a long line and waiting to pay. People get frustrated very quickly. So look at the evolution, the innovations that have surfaced from recognizing the pain points in a customer's journey through a retail establishment. What do? They created self-checkout lines, right? Or they open up more lines to facilitate the movement of people with as little friction as possible and create a positive experience. I'm going to tell you a story. Have you ever heard the story about Johnny the Bagger? It reminds me, Valentina, I'll send you a video about Johnny the Bagger. Johnny was a Down syndrome kid, and he got a job in a supermarket as a packer. He would, at the point of sale, people's groceries, he would bag them for them. Johnny the Bagger, every time he came to work, in his mind, he wanted people to feel good. You know what he did? He put a saying, a wonderful saying. He would type it, cut it into small bits, and every bag that he packed, he'd put a saying in there. People would go home and they'd be surprised. Surprise is a very important factor to influence how people's hearts are touched, right? And customers saw this line, this beautiful statement in their grocery bag. Guess what happened? Johnny the Bagger developed a reputation. His lines were the longest, and people were willing to stand there for extended periods because they wanted to get Johnny the Bagger's nice saying that they would enjoy.
Yeah,
Think about that. How easy it is to touch people's hearts. Now, I also understand that not too many people can touch people's hearts like Johnny the Bagger, but the concept should be patently obvious to retail establishments on how important it is to be able to actually mitigate a frustration by creating this wow surprise factor that Johnny the Bagger was able to deliver.
love it. I it it's kind of awkward to me why companies are not aware about this simple mechanism, because when we are talking about loyalty programs, we usually talk about sophisticated mechanisms that needs mathematical modeling so that you still break even or you are still profitable when you are incentivizing customers to come back. Like, and I think it's very transactional. Like, if you do this, you get that. But the basics would be to show that you care, and there are many ways to show that you care without destroying your margin. And I talked about this in my book as well. I find that loyalty programs themselves should begin with the end in mind. So at the end of the day, in order to make your customers loyal, you simply have to show that you care about them as human beings. Because if you don't do that, you end up giving them points and tiers and coupons that they might use them or not. But the relationship that you establish with your thousands of your customers is being affected by emotions which can be triggered by the little things. And that's why I love this story about Johnny the Bagger.
And Johnny the Bag is an exceptional phenomena in the sense that it conveys a very powerful message. But you know, there aren't too many Johnny the Baggers in the world, right?
Yeah,
So what do retail establishments do? So some retail establishments, when they recognize that the lines are long and extended before they check out, if you're waiting there, guess what? A bottle of water as a courtesy gift to your customer that's waiting. They're appreciative.
yeah,
Customers are responding, always respond to a positive gesture.
yeah,
This is not complex. It's a matter of being able to be aware of it and doing it.
yeah,
It's not that people don't have the gift of giving, they just need to be made aware of the powerful impact of the gift of giving, like giving someone a bottle of water while waiting long, or for that matter, not giving them anything. But if a store manager or a store associate came in line and said, I'm so sorry that you're waiting this long. We're going to try and get you out as soon as possible. Even something as simple as that would make people feel less frustrated.
yeah. Uh, Mohammed, I want to touch on a subject which is like a recurring theme to me. On one end, there are people which got it, like you and me, and there are professionals, like you were speaking about the CXPA association, and there is this phenomenon which catches up. On the other end, we have leaders from the organizations which they use these old models. Let's say they use this analytics and their KPIs, and at the end of the day, it's for them it's like taking a leap of faith to overinvest into the customer experience, because they've been taught that they want to make it profitable. I mean, they have their KPIs, EBITDA, P&L, cash flow, whatever the numbers. And I want to touch a bit on the on how to demonstrate the impact of the customer experience, how to measure it, and how to help the retail leaders to understand the importance of this phenomenon.
So, first of all, let me say to you that organizations these days are beginning to recognize that their paradigm has to shift.
Yeah,
And the paradigm shift is to look at their markets from the outside in. Pardon me. When you look at the market from the outside in, what happens is you're focusing on the customer. You're then incorporating the customer into your ecosystem. Typically, businesses operated with a mindset of inside out. So internally, they would focus on efficiencies and productivity and merchandising and all the stuff that helps the operations of the company,
yeah,
thinking that everything they're doing internally would spill over into touching people's hearts and touching people's minds, and therefore getting people to become more loyal. Loyalty here being measured by repeat purchases, largest share of the wallet. And eventually, if they become fans of your brand, they become your advocates. They go out and tell people.
Yeah.
And that's how you grow the business. Um, Companies are recognizing that without a focus on the customer, all those internal operations and that paradigm of operating with a inside out mindset has not succeeded. And you should look at retail examples. Let's just look at a few examples. Take Amazon. Jeff Bezos, for example, when he has business conversations with his executive team, do you know that he always has an empty chair in the room?
Customer, yeah.
And the empty chair. So when a direct report executive expresses a point of view or position on the company's strategies, Jeff Bezos says, all right, sit in that chair, metaphorically, and think about what we are doing from the customer's perspective. That's why they become so good at what they do. I'll give you another dramatic example. I don't know if you ever heard of, you know, Nordstrom's in the US,
Yeah.
right? Well-known high-end department store chain. I shared this morning, in fact, with some of the folks in a class. A customer walks into a Nordstrom store with two tires, and demands being given his money back. Nordstrom's never sold tires. Nordstrom never sold tires since then, and Nordstrom will never sell tires. They're selling clothing. Do you know what they did? They gave this guy money. They gave his money back as a way of expressing the beginning of a culture within the organization that said, yes, we know that this customer didn't buy tires from us, but we want to convey the message that the customer is so important that we'll even pay him for the tire, and that set the tone. And Nordstrom's now is a model for customer experience, just like Amazon is. And let's even think about Apple. Think about Stephen Jobs. Stephen Jobs is another model. Apple is another example of an organization. And Stephen Jobs, as a leader, was really quite influential in creating the Apple philosophy. And he said it so clearly. It's important for us to start with the customer and then go talk to our engineers inside to produce the products we want to sell. It just changed the whole orientation to business. Let's produce what our customers want rather than producing what we think our customers want. And that great gap has now been narrowed by companies like Apple, by companies like Amazon, by companies like Nordstrom, and we can go on. Disney and Ritz-Carlton, my most favorite retail player in the hospitality space, truly understand what it means to capture the customer's heart.
Yeah, I love their tagline.
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, serving ladies and gentlemen. What a marvelous expression of a culture. Now, this is an interesting point and something we should never forget in the customer experience space. And this, too, is a recent development. You cannot possibly engage in the delivery of exemplary experiences until you've also established a significant commitment to employees, because it's the employees that deliver that experience. So we need to pay attention to employees and their experience within the company.
Mohamed, I have a question regarding the North Star metric that made this podcast happen. What's your take on customer lifetime value? How do you see it? How important it is in the big picture of the retailers?
My goodness, retailers have a terrific opportunity to create lifetime value. Just go back to Johnny the Bagger. What is Johnny the Bagger doing? Actually creating lifetime value, right? Talk about loyalty. People keep coming back and they want to stand in his line. But let's go beyond Johnny the Bagger. Think about the impact you can have on people for a long time. I gave an example at the conference yesterday about how the banking industry, another retail sector, misses opportunities to author moments that matter.
Yeah.
And if they author moments that matter, they create and instill a memory because you've touched people's hearts. You've made them feel. And when you make people feel good, they never forget you. It doesn't matter what you tell them. What matters is how you make them feel. So, if as I gave as the example I gave yesterday suggests, if I walk into a bank with my child who spent years collecting 95 RON in a piggy bank and wants to open a savings account, what an opportunity for the bank to create lifetime value at that moment if they authored it in a way that said to the child, who's worked very hard to collect 95 lei, right, or RON, and the bank teller, a bank professional says, we're so proud of you opening your first savings account. You know what? I know how difficult it's been for you to collect this money. Why don't we open your account and we'll contribute and round this out to 100 RON. So your opening balance will be 100 RON. Do you think that child will forget that experience?
Yeah.
Do you think that child's emotions will not create a memory that you cannot erase? Do you think that child might actually be part of your customer lifetime value stream? I submit to you,
Yeah.
it would impact the lifetime value.
Yeah, it's like €1 investment for maybe thousands
A
of
lifetime of money coming in your direction.
Yeah, because you've made such a difference at the moment where the perceived value was pretty high, while for you as a company it was pretty nothing, right?
Yeah.
Investing €1
Sure.
or $1 into that relationship. One last question for you, Mohamed. How do you see the decision-making process being affected in the future by the customers? You've said about this example about the customer being part of the board decision. Do you think this is going to happen soon? Because one of the best ideas that I've got from this podcast going further, from Jim Kalbach, by the way, he said that in the future, the customers, so the companies which will get more and more knowledge and feedback and insights from the customers, and that will invent a council, like a customer advisory board. Those will be the companies that will win because they will be the closest to where the market is going.
You're quite right, Valentin. Look at the incredible value of having advisory boards made up of customers. You're basically inviting them to influence how the brand conducts business. When you have customers participating in the development of a culture, you're already one step ahead of your competition. I think advisory boards are valuable. They need to be, of course, managed. Because remember, customers that you bring into an advisory board typically operate on a volunteer basis.
Yeah.
So you've got to make even your advisory board have fantastic experiences.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Mohamed, thanks a lot for being part of the CLV revolution. Tell us, where can people find you? Where can find more about you?
Well, there are many ways to find me. First, you can connect with me directly on LinkedIn, Mohamed Latib. Just find me on LinkedIn, or you can go to my website. I have two organizations that I founded that focus on the customer.
Yeah.
We educate people. So go to cxuniversity.com and see what we do. And we also have a second company that focuses on the healthcare industry. And you can go to Patient Experience Academy or pxacademy.com and you'll learn more about what we do. And on LinkedIn, you'll know more about me.
Super. So thanks a lot for being part of the CLV Revolution podcast. And as for you out there, we'll see each other, of course, in the next episode. We're going to put all these amazing links from Mohamed in the show notes, and we'll see each other next week.